You know that popular saying that there's a big difference between a boss when you fight him versus when he becomes a party member? We're discussing a character that is not only an absolute unit with hacks, but proves to show you how important skill is even in the face of absolute invulnerability. Alan Becker's Animation vs. Minecraft Season 3 opened the doors to serialized storytelling, challenged the status quo of the otherwise episodic, for the funnies, storytelling in AVM. We are breaking down that season's antagonist turned out of the group who is still here to take names and kick ass. King Orange, or King as I will be calling him for simplicity, is an absolute powerhouse of a stick figure that shows intelligent wit, cunning deception, and amazing hand-to-hand combat that definitely gave our protagonists a run for their money. He's a character that I want to break down because he definitely shines as an example of how to write fighters wielding absolute power while also showing the intricacies of what makes them master that power in the first place. So welcome to How Strong is King Orange? Disclaimer. This isn't your average power scaling style of video where I'm taking in strength in isolation, and I also won't be putting numbers for the sake of proving superiority amongst characters. It's a dissection, where I'm using the scenes and the context of their personality to better understand why they fight a certain way. Also, it's not completely power that I'm after either. It's appreciating what that character can do and which aspect of their story is best reflected in their combat arsenal. So, let's begin. King Orange is the antagonist of Animation vs. Minecraft Season 3, introduced to us in the episode Parkour. Though he's already been redeemed by the end of the season, he's definitely the archetype of older figure in a video game that knows all of the hacks and isn't afraid to use it against randoms in the lobby. Someone said he had unk status. Honestly, I believe them. As a fighter, the king was, to put lightly, invincible. He had all of the tricks in the book against a dozen enemies altogether and had one of the most broken power sets in the entire series. The flavor texts in the video even go out of their way to emphasize that his power set included nigh invulnerability and invincibility. And you can feel it. He was a beast with the staff and without the staff. A genuine connoisseur in combat that utilized his power with a proficiency that the Color Gang didn't have, even when they wielded the same power multiple times. So, let's start by analyzing his combat physicality and fighting style. King's balance with strength and dexterity is what makes him a formidable opponent against the Color Gang even when he didn't have the staff. In the King episode, we see that he is able to throw knives and isn't afraid to get into physical altercations when in massive fits of rage. We also see that he was play fighting with his son, giving us a glimpse that fighting in general might be something that he's generally interested in or even proficient in. King's fighting style is brutish and unrelenting, with front-heavy dives at an enemy if he feels like he aims to finish him off. He's what I call strength priority, with a lot of his feats being about bashing people's heads and torsos in with his fists and grappling items out of their reach. He also has a proclivity to choking people by the neck, both with the staff's features and with his bare fists. Actually, I'd argue that his style of hand-to-hand combat is similar to Purple, who uses street baller stances, while striking at an enemy's face, neck, and head with punches. However, the King is also good in terms of dexterity. First is his general mobility. King is able to sufficiently dodge and maneuver through terrain even against multiple enemies with just sheer acrobatics. Without the staff, he was able to scale Yellow's barrier blocks and the front of the Titan Ravager. King was also able to kick off the Enderman, jump over the spiderweb, roll over Yellow's barrier before transitioning into a power slide under Yellow. He then swaps that momentum as pushback against Orange before shoving him into Blue and then jumping on his head to reach for Purple. When he does get the Black Minecraft block, we see him still execute massive jumps to reposition or even general dodges against Orange. We also see in the King that he is able to use his speed to counter Green and Red during their sequence on the stone bridge. Second is the speed of his attacks. This is of course amplified by the speed of the block he's wielding, but that doesn't make it any less impressive. One example of this is the speed of his conjuration during his fight with Herobrine. Even though he lost this sequence in terms of speed because, well, Herobrine, it doesn't make it any less impressive. Now, it's time to discuss the actual magnum opus of his character, the staff. As much as I would love to remove the staff from King in terms of how strong is he, I think it's such a massive disservice to the fact that he was not only able to make something this powerful, but he's also able to use it in a level so incomparable to others. The staff is able to take several components of the item attached to it and manifest them in whatever reality or dimension you exist in. But there's surprisingly a lot more physics that comes with it. Let's begin first with the basic commands. The command block staff allows for him to manipulate different commands that affect the player, entity, or item. Some of the code that he utilizes are giving himself status effects, chokeholds and controlling entities, barrier and block generation, and item enchantments. We also see in speedrun that he can use it to teleport. Once he gets the Minecraft block though, he also gains access to flight. The Minecraft blocks can also distinctively make the user enter creative mode, which makes them invincible to general damage. However, any form of displacement is still good to go. This explains why no matter what the stick figures tried to do, with blue shooting the guy multiple times in the face, which I am sure would have killed anyone, it wasn't actually harming King significantly. But red bashing him in the head point blank, or him striking purple in the back, means that dropping the staff is still possible. The Minecraft block staff also allows King to create waves of blocks to either attack or guard for him. His most preferred type of block is obsidian, but he has also generated fire charges and arrows, netherite blocks, and even bedrock. Block generation also extends to when he gets the white Minecraft block, which lets him create large weapons with netherite. All of the weapons created are just variations of a main Minecraft weapon. What I love about King's block generation is that he feels so much more fluid than the others when using it. If I were to give a comparison, King's style is similar to water bending, while Yellow's is more like earth bending. Additionally, he manipulates the structure rather than just creating it once. He removes the blocks from underneath it, then he creates a bridge, and just like water, he makes the obsidian bridge a tidal wave to get him down and then continues extending it until it fully surrounds Orange and the Warden. There are a lot of water motifs for the King. Additionally, when it comes to generation, when King possessed the black Minecraft block, he was able to conjure black copies of the Minecraft mobs. But now we go on to what makes King so different from the others when he's using the staff. Because one of the strongest aspects of King's utilization of the staff is how proficient he is at using the staff to its fullest potential, rather than the others who display either hesitation or incompleteness when wielding it. And it's because King Orange utilizes the staff like an actual weapon. Let's compare this to how the others use the staff. Orange and Red use the staff exclusively as a bludgeoning tool, with the netherite and gold blocks as their primary go-to. They use the head of the staff as the main swinging component against King Orange, and while it is effective, it also made them susceptible to multiple openings when King Orange did begin counterattacking. On the other hand, Yellow uses the staff like a wand primarily, using its functions rather than its actual body. Which honestly I think is a shame because Yellow has shown proficiency in staff-like weapons before. And Green just... The point is that most of them only use one element of the staff to its potential. Conversely, King Orange emphasizes on the full use of the staff's body. It has something to do with grips and weights. Staves like this, where the weight is at the top, can act as a bludgeoning hammer because swinging it lets you drag the momentum from the body to the head. But the body is also important because most staves like this can cover the full torso when it comes to blocking. Unlike a sword where you either have to use both hands to block while holding the hilt, a staff can be held by its neck at the fullest, which completes the grip. Now, I want to talk about the staff. The creation of the staff, from what little I can garner from the background details, has something to do with complex relativism, vector fields, and other forces in physics like work, power, etc. The actual execution of the staff, in pseudoscience, has something to do with theoretical physics, which is why King was researching black holes and vortexes. On a side note, can I say how much of a rabbit hole having to analyze the staff is as someone that not only isn't a physics major, but also despised physics in college? But we can guesstimate what these equations mean by looking at what the staff already does. We see from this that King studied about work and power, which are essentially about energy transferring and the speed of the transfer. This is probably what lets the staff harness external power from a source to transfer it into another field. We also see material derivative, which according to Wikipedia, describes the time rate of change of some physical quantity that is subjected to a space and time dependent macroscopic velocity field, followed by a big equation and flow velocity velocity. Basically speaking, the formulas here can be interpreted in Minecraft pseudoscience with how the staff utilizes the energy of a block or item and manifests it in a different dimension altogether. The staff changes the rate of that item's energy properties, amplifying it to a degree the item normally wouldn't be able to conjure. One example of this was how much slower King was to generate the flow-like structures of the obsidian, but when he gets the staff and they all combine, aka different times theoretically with different conditions, there's an increased speed and an amplification of power. Another one is just how fast things can spawn when the staff is being used, and how energies or forces can be amplified like fire, light, and weight. Also, I find it neat that he has all of these liquid-aligned physics, and his biggest animation motif is liquid. Another interesting one is the Doppler shift. It's defined as the change in frequency of a wave in relation to an observer moving relative to the wave source. If the source approaches, the frequency increases, and vice versa. So, you know. Okay, so what was the point of all of this? Well, a cool detail about what King Orange is doing is that he's attempting to understand stick figure physics translated into Minecraft, something that I genuinely think is missing in a lot of pseudoscience world building. Here, we see him translating variables and full-on equations that work in the stick figure world into what equations they would be in Minecraft. When it comes to character writing, even if it was just background details, I like that his character actually studies the hidden logic of his intelligence. More often than not, characters with powers like this just do because they can. And normally that would still be okay. But having even a fake explanation can make the character seem not just worthy of the power because they put in the genuine legwork, but also realistic because it takes concepts that the audience can relate to, aka our real-world physics. Which is why I definitely believe that the king deserves that staff. Now we move on to combat mentality, the aspect of the character that bleeds into their combat. Because my analysis is done with respect to their personality, it's always important to understand why they fight. Breaking down their combat mentality can help recontextualize their limitations, motivations, and conditions for engaging and ending altercations. Some characters are stronger under stress, some look to others for assistance, while some are more reassured and are groundedly consistent. This section is divided into 3 parts. Let's begin with combat initiative. How do they start combat? Despite his more ruthless behaviors towards the sticks and lack of mercy when actively in a fight, he won't engage unless he has to, or if there is an active threat to his goals. Let's compare how he treated blue and yellow versus what happened with green and red. Green and red's case was because they were already actively hostile. However, with blue and yellow, it was a matter of intelligence and trickery. He wanted to trap them in the castle with things that they were fond of because neither of them have shown to be threats just yet. Honestly, he might have had a lot of faith in yellow's naivete and blue's crippling addiction if he thought it was a good idea to give yellow a fully functioning command block. There's a high chance that King, much like how he learned of the existence of the Color Gang in the first place, had background information about their personalities not from Purple, but from YouTube. Purple, as far as we know, wasn't aware of what would bring them in. I find this side of him interesting because he could have just trapped blue and yellow the same way he did with green and red, and they would have been none the wiser. But him trying to give them a false sense of security and seemingly not really planning to do anything about it shows that in some messed up way, he was willing to spare them had they cooperated or if they just remained there. Of course, that doesn't mean he's good during this scene. If anything, it just makes the betrayal all the more painful. King is highly emotional and will not hesitate to maim or harm when he's mad. This results in the choking of several fellow stick figures and even his eventual abandonment of Purple. While I respect his character development, I don't want to remove his flaws from the past. It gives a clearer picture of who he was. Because in the future, it doesn't mean that this mentality was eradicated. He froze when he saw the massive amalgamation similar to his son, meaning emotions are still a massive driving force of why he does what he does. This is also consistent with what broke him out of his rage and eventually what led him to try and make amends with Purple and the gang, because his archetype is a grieving father. This, however, is also positive because it extends to his cooperation with the Color Gang. He indulges in their activities and doesn't really stop them from messing around until the situation gets very dire. However, when he is in combat, King's engagement mentality is cutthroat efficiency. His goal is to shut you down as fast as possible. He also changes his tactics quickly depending on what he's fighting. And last but not the least is combat de-escalation. King is a father first before he's a fighter. The key to stopping combat with King is generally just by appeasing to his emotions. Now, here's the thing. I was going to do a frame-by-frame analysis of King's fighting style, but I actually already did the King fight in this video, so click the link below if you want to check it out. In my opinion, what makes King strong isn't just his power set. Besides the OP hacks, in the grand scheme of Alan Becker's universe, it's always intelligence translated into execution that can break realities. King Orange is just an extension of that writing ideology. This is very important to a series like this where the logic of power has to be well defined or else it loses weight. Though the most plotty part about it is just how lucky he is to get the 2 blocks, but that's a railroad at that point. But what I like about this is how they used his weakness. His defeat was in line with the story's core themes. He was never a character that craved power, but power became a means to an end. When he rediscovered the value of caring for others, he began his path to redemption. That power never faded, but it was given to someone else. Because King Orange didn't need or even want that power anymore. If you want to see more how strong are Alan Becker's stick figures, click the playlist up here.